Good evening and welcome. You're watching The Big Fight, a show that is young at 22, the oldest running debate show on Indian news television. I'm Sanket Upadhyay. A number of incidents have happened over this last week that force us to think about a pattern. Some would argue an obvious pattern, but you can decide for yourself. In Uttar Pradesh's Aligarh, despite the administration denying permission, they denied permission. The Akhil Bharatiya Vidyarthi Parishad workers put up loudspeakers to play out the Hanuman Chalisa as a counter to the Azaan playing from the mosques, almost weaponizing the Hanuman Chalisa for political gain. The same thing is happening in Mumbai also, where MNS and the BJP are doing the exact same thing in Mumbai, just ahead of the BMC elections. Then of course the Madhya Pradesh Bulldozer justice, where there are allegations that the bulldozer is only being used against members of one particular community. Outside of BJP-ruled states in West Bengal, the Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee accused of shielding her own party members. Some of them accused when a minor was gang raped and she succumbed to her injuries. And the CM faced allegations of trivializing this issue by insinuating motives, love affair, etc. This forces us to think just one thing, and that is our debating point as well. Do political sides define justice now in this country? That you will get justice, instant justice, depending on your political affiliation. If you're affiliated with a political party in power in that state, you will get justice. If you are not affiliated, forget about it. You will not get justice. Let's begin the big fight by asking this question of all our panelists. I would like to introduce Sushmita Deb, Rajya Sabha MP of the Trinamool Congress, Sanjay Jha, former spokesperson of the Congress Party, Ashutosh, a senior journalist and a political analyst, Supriya Shinate, national spokesperson of the Congress Party, Govardhan Das, professor of Jawaharlal Nehru University, Ranveer Singh Pathania, spokesperson of the BJP, Smita Prakash, editor of the ANI, and Professor Geeta Bhatt, the political analyst, supports the RSS and the BJP. We've got a full house in here on your screen right now because we feel that this is an important issue. Is justice going to be defined on your political affiliation? Let's begin this discussion by giving each one of you panelists 1 minute of time for your opening comments. We call this the first punch. We'll begin with you, Ms. Sushmita Deb. Your time begins now.
See, I don't think crime, culpability or what amounts to justice should have a political color. I think what the people who vote for governments vote for good governance, and I think a practical and a reasonable citizen understands that there is going to be some level of crime in every state, and we understand that law and order is a state subject, but it matters to an ordinary citizen how the government deals with it, how the law enforcement agencies deal with it, and when something unfortunate happens, if it's a rape or a murder or any such incident, what people look towards the government is to make sure that proper justice is done. There should not be any interference and sensitivity. Now, what also happens is these kind of news are sensationalized. They are debated by different political parties.
Okay.
A blame game starts. So that's the part that actually politicizes the issue.
Okay.
But I think an ordinary citizen expects justice should be done.
Sure. Okay. I'm going to come back to you. Govardhan Das, your opening comments.
See, good evening to you all. I agree that criminals do not have any color. And time to time, they only take the shelter. And when they take the shelter, and depending on the ruling party, depending on the strength of the party, they generally change that, simply a jersey change. And in fact, the common citizen choose a government just to, for the benefit of this common citizen, and then government should try to do, and they should do the best to keep the citizens safe. However, some of the political parties, like in West Bengal, they hire the goons and they give the shelters to the goons, and they are do all kind of mess up. And that is kind of things that are very unfortunate.
Okay, Supriya Shinate.
I will begin by simply saying that rule of the law must prevail. And what we are seeing in various parts of the country, and particularly in BJP ruled states, and no, I'm not giving it a political color, is the fact that there is mob justice that is prevailing. I also think egged by the ruling party, the BJP. Look at the kind of statements Shivraj Singh Chauhan has made in the last 4 days. Look at the kind of actions that mobs have taken. Are the country is going to be governed by the rule of law, by courts, or are we going to keep our judiciary under lock and key and let bulldozers decide the fate? Because what we are primarily seeing is that, and I think the debate needs to shift focus to will mobs deliver justice or will our courts do that? What is the role of elected governments? What should the role of the police and administration be? Because when you say that an Aligarh permission was denied and ABVP still went ahead with it, I still want to know what sort of punishment is going to be meted out to them. I want to know that JNU, where the violence occurred, Komal Sharma has not been caught for the last 2 years. Will perpetrators of this crime be brought to justice? That is the big question, and which is why question marks will be raised on the integrity of the police and the administration.
Sure. Ranbir Singh Pathania.
First of all, I thank Sanket. You have raised a very, very lively and what I could say in present times, it is of much relevance. My view, cutting across party lines and rather rising above the party considerations, the concept of justice, social, economic and political as whatever preamble envisages, and the very concept of rule of law, which infers that nobody, no institution, no individual is supreme, only the law of the land is supreme. It needs to be upheld. But certain span which I genuinely raise, not as a, I could say, it is a political take from my side. We should all strive to make it possible that without scoring political and browning points on an issue, the strength of the India, the strength of the Constitution of India and strength of we, the people of India, means that we all strive towards creating an egalitarian, justiciable society, system and a polity too.
Okay.
My two inferences,
I'm going to come back to you because, you know, the time for the opening comment is over. You've made a passionate 1 minute comment also. But, you know, while you were speaking, I had a lot of counters. I'm going to reserve that for once everyone has spoken. Smita Prakash. Ms. Prakash, your opening comments.
Yeah, Sanket, you know, since we are talking about the constitution, we have a federal structure in our country which leans unitary, and there is division and balance of power between the national government on one side and state governments on the other. This is done so that there are checks and balances, and it's a deterrent to any kind of tyranny. But does that work uniformly? No, it doesn't. Imbalances occur, especially in times of political circumstances such as like a weak coalition in the center or a 2/3 majority government at the center. And you have a weak center, you have state governments that run almost like republics, and you have a strong center, and then you have state governments at the mercy of the center, state governments. Now, it's reflected in all arms of the government, whether it's police, whether it's judiciary, whether it's civil services, all these, they get their cues from the way how strong or weak a state or a central government is. I mean, and why is it that this bulldozer, somebody said bulldozer and stuff like that, why is it that this instant dispensation of justice is appreciated at the polls? Why is it done? That is because of the pendency in our judiciary. Almost 30 million cases, I think, that are pending in our district courts. 30 to 40% of the cases in most states in the police force is left unsolved. There are 150 police officers per million people in this country. So how is dispensation? So this is the anomaly that happens.
Absolutely,
and
it is an anomaly.
Happens.
We've run out of time. It is an anomaly, but the point is that then this short-circuiting and delivering of justice, this new mechanism is very dangerous. It's extrajudicial. So a broken judiciary cannot mean to each his own. So that will be devastating. I'll come back to you and we'll talk in great detail about this. Sanjay Jha, your opening comments.
Sanket, I believe India's institutions have become instruments of political power It always has been the case. It is very aggravated and, in my opinion, violent today under Mr. Modi's government. It's time we stop prevaricating and pussyfooting around and bit the bullet. And the reality is this. What you're witnessing in India is institutionalized lynching. Mob fury is when we saw in the case of Muhammad Atlaq, Junaid Khan, etc. But when you bring down people's homes, deprive them of their livelihoods by bringing down their shops, it is basically giving a legal sanctity to a banana republic structure. And I believe we should all be worried as citizens of India if Mr. Modi's governments in the states, and his center is, of course, luminous in his silence, is going to allow kangaroo courts to function, where somebody's livelihood is taken, and there is a celebration at the time of elections that we are giving bulldozer justice. It's a travesty of India's democracy.
Okay, Ashutosh, your opening comments.
See, Sanket, for the simple reason that we are discussing it itself is to show that the matter is very, very serious. Let me tell you first this. What is justice? Justice is a process which involves the political leadership, the bureaucracy, and the judiciary. And if we see around today, there is almost collapse of the constitution. Why this is happening? This is happening for the simple reason because there is a demise of the moral political leadership. There is a destruction of bureaucracy, and there is a decline of judiciary. Combine all three. How can you imagine that a bureaucrat is not following the law? He is not answerable to the constitution. If he has been asked to demolish certain houses, he will go and demolish the houses without waiting for the consequences. So that's why I'm saying, if there is a strong political leadership, the moral political leadership, this will never happen. If there is a strong bureaucracy which can stand up and say, I will not do this, this will not happen. If there is a judiciary which wants to timely intervene and ask the executive, this is not done, this will not happen. But this is happening because there is a partial collapse of the constitution in this country, and political leadership, bureaucracy, and judiciary, all three have a criminal connivance, and I'm using the word, have a criminal connivance in this.
Okay, that's a very strong comment, particularly in the context of judiciary. I know about pendencies, but I mean, criminal connivance is a very strong view, and you're entitled to it, and we can talk about this later. You can elaborate also. Professor Geeta Bhatt, your opening comments.
Well, Sanketji, thanks for inviting me to the big fight.
My pleasure.
Well, you know, when Mahatma Gandhi, he said that the first condition for non-violence is justice all around in every aspect of life. One expects that, you know, that the state has its duty to ensure the safety of its citizens as well as to protect their fundamental rights. When we talk about, you know, the freedom of their expression, then every community has a right to, you know, express their freedom. But one observes that when, you know, in a small town like Karauli in Rajasthan, where when the FIR says that the events which took place were pre-planned, but and it also names the, you know, the councillor who belongs to the present political dispensation, who's ruling the state, is absconding, you know, for days together, and he's not being caught, then one is bound to think that why is it that when the state is expected to be bipartisan and no appeasement, why is it that there is a skewed execution of justice? Why is it that the government, you know, those who are in government, why is it that they are not trying to ensure?
Time is up. Professor Bhatt, it's very interesting, and I'm glad that you brought up Karauli, because that is also part of this discussion, and which is why we chose this subject, whether political sides are going to deliver justice, whether it is Karauli in Rajasthan or, you know, in West Bengal, or Khargone in Madhya Pradesh, and the list just goes on and on. On this Karauli context, Ms. Supriya Shinate, would you like to reply?
I want
like
to make
you may say
points.
a lot about Khargone, but then, you know, there will be political questions asked on Karauli as well.
No, I will speak on Karauli. I'm not going to walk away from that, but I will make 2 points on something that was mentioned here, that for every 100 people, there's one policeman. But the same policeman stands there like a mute spectator when somebody in saffron robe talks about raping women. The same policeman is actually standing there being a mute spectator when the mob takes up violence. So let's not resort to arguments like, you know, because the judiciary is not functioning, these extrajudicial activities should be tolerated. They must not be tolerated in a civil society. Let me talk about Karauli. There were 40 people arrested in Karauli, both from the Hindus and the Muslim community. They were more made to sit across the table. Situation is returning to normal. And truth be told, on Ram Navami Day, there was absolute peaceful celebration made all across the state of Rajasthan, including Karauli. Unlike Madhya Pradesh, unlike Karnataka, unlike Bihar, what we saw. Why is that so? It is so because when you want to, incidents will happen. What do the governments, what does administration, and what does the police do when action has been taken against police officers who chose to be mute spectators there? What happened in Khargone? You allowed mob to deliver justice. You even actually razed to ground the houses built under the PM Awas Yojana. How do you define all of that? How do you justify the kind of language that the BJP, particularly its chief minister and its home minister in the state of Madhya Pradesh are using, and the conspicuous silence on all that is happening across states that are ruled by the BJP?
By the way, I have to tell you something very interesting, Mr. Pathania.
Why?
One thing very interesting that has happened in Madhya Pradesh is that a person has been accused of arson and rioting.
And he was in jail.
On the 11th
and he
of
was
April,
in jail.
Where he went to jail on the 11th of March. So according to the Madhya Pradesh government, a person who was jailed came out, committed this crime,
and then went back to jail.
And went back to jail.
Not at all, sir. Sanket, allow me to clarify.
Yeah. And his house was also bulldozed.
Sir, the morning report was 3 persons. Not
the
Madhya
morning
Pradesh
report.
Please allow me to complete, ma'am. Allow me to complete, ma'am. As per, it was not the version of the Madhya Pradesh Sarkar. It was the contents of the FIR. And the police spokesperson has clarified that it was as per the statement of a person. FIR is first information report. And what is the
police
law
reports
relating
to the government of the state? I hope you know that.
No, if this is the logic, if this is the one, I've got a counter.
What is the first information
I've got a
report?
counter. I've got a
Let's first of all
counter.
understand.
Okay, fine. I take your Mr.
What is the
Pathania.
first information report?
Mr. Pathania, I take your logic that this was
Please.
first information report.
Report, sir.
But then how come in one day the police was able to decide, yes, this FIR is correct, the person is guilty, and you raised his house? FIR is fine.
I raise a counter question, Mr. Sanket. I raise a counter question. Whether on the basis of FIR, only the houses have been raised.
Learn to answer a few things.
Whether on the houses,
Pathania ji, this is not the reply to my answer.
Kabhi to jawab
This is not a reply to my question. You said, I am going by your logic. Mr. Pathania, I am going by your logic. You are saying that it was an FIR. Anyone can get an FIR written. But your police did the due diligence. And then you set your bulldozers to that house.
Sir, I have
due diligence kar liya na.
And houses built under the Prime Minister's Awas Yojana.
Two different cases.
Allow me 30 seconds, sir.
Yeah.
You see Karauli, you see West Bengal, you see Gujarat, and particularly Khargone. The peaceful atmosphere of the entire country has been, we can say, set at windmill. Such an atmosphere, such a communal divide, such a nuisance.
Why is the Prime Minister quiet?
Allow me to complete, madam. Please allow me to complete.
Why is the Prime Minister quiet? I just want to know. Why is he not talking?
Okay, one by one. Mr. Pathania, you're answering all questions.
You'll be allowed to.
You're not answering the question I asked you.
I'm coming to it, sir. I'm coming to it, sir. The FIR is under Prevention of Damage to Public Property Act. And the demolitions which have been ordered, they are specifically with regard to constructions with regard to illegal.
Now that is another problem. On paper, this bulldozing on paper is an anti-encroachment drive, right?
Sir, absolutely.
But politically, Mr. Narottam Mishra, Mama Shivraj Singh Chauhan, right, or even Baba Yogi Adityanath, all of them position this as Danga
Have you heard
karoge,
Shivrajji's speeches?
So then we will ram this bulldozer.
Looks like you haven't.
Mr. Shivraj never said, sir. Mr. Shivraj never said. Mr. Shivraj said that these people will be booked under.
Actually, there's a huge fight between Shivraj and Narottam Mishra. That's true.
And whatsoever
That's true.
the damages
Shivraj
will be
Singh
recovered
Chauhan
from them.
and Narottam Mishra are at war.
The statement of
Now
Mr.
out
Chief
in the
Justice
open.
Shivraj Singh Chauhan is. This is what he said. And kindly go through his speech on Ambedkar
Bulldozer
Jayanti.
Mama
He said,
versus Bulldozer
as good as
Baba.
Ram Navami,
That's
the
the
people
feud
have a
in the
right.
BJP.
People have a
Who's
right
going to
to
use the
celebrate
bulldozer
one
in
by
a
one.
bigger way?
Celebrate
That's
Good
the
Friday.
truth.
One by one. Okay. See, my point is, Mr. Pathania,
Pathania,
I made three attempts to ask you a question. You
please,
answered
please,
every
allow.
possible thing, but not my question. My
Please,
question
please,
was
please allow me.
that
Put me the question, I'll answer it.
if the FIR named certain people who were in jail,
Sir.
and you said that this is an FIR, it can happen, anyone can register an FIR.
No.
You are then admitting that your police could not do its due diligence because it ended up bulldozing the houses, which means that
my-
it did not do.
Sir, this is what I am saying.
And
Sir,
if
this
this
is
is
what
how
I am
you are
saying.
delivering justice,
Sir, please
then
allow
there
me
is a problem.
half a minute. Half a minute, sir. Half a minute. With regard to FIR, this is what the Honorable Supreme Court has ruled, sir. Whatsoever are the contents of the FIR, with the comma.
I am
with
talking
and
about
they have
action.
to be
What is he
produced.
talking
No
about?
question of
It's
exercise
making no
intelligence.
sense to me at
and
all.
the other part remains. Other part remains, sir. That
So
those
today, Mr.
demolitions have been
Pathania
done.
is dehyphenating.
I don't think he
You are
knows.
dehyphenating riots with
Absol-
the demolition drive, correct?
Sir, very simple question. Sir, very simple question.
Then
Arey,
Mr.
answer
Narottama
do
Mishra
yaar,
and
kya
others should
sawal
not make
sawal?
this
What
claim.
A
question?
construction and rather than encroachment on a public land.
Okay.
What stops an
I think this is a very Sushmita Dev. I want to come to you now.
What?
Do you think?
Sir.
No, I've been meaning to ask this question, and
stops
then I'll come
administration to raise
to
a
I'll come to
construction
I'll come to
on public land,
Smita Prakash also one by one. Sushmita Dev,
Please,
do you
please.
think that the BJP has very smartly, for political sake, argued that we are going after the rioters, we are going after all those who are troublemakers, accused of rape by bulldozing their houses? But on paper, legally, all of this is an anti-encroachment drive. So that whenever it goes to the courts, the governments can always say there is nothing about other cases. This was only an encroachment, anti-encroachment
See,
drive.
See, any government can decide to remove illegal encroachment, but this is a clear-cut case of abuse of power. You see, it's a cover-up to say that this is encroachment. This is targeted. This is selective use of power, and that's the problem with it. If a government in a normal day goes to remove illegal encroachment, no one can say anything. But this is a colored use of power. That's the problem.
Can you define colored
That's
use?
the issue. That's why this has been it.
Colorable use of
Colored
power.
use
Sorry
is
to correct you.
when-
Not colored. The expression is colorable use of power. Please explain. Sorry to interrupt.
He
ma'am.
can say what he wants to. I'm answering Sanket's.
Yeah, Ms.
question.
Sushmita, yeah.
You see, today it's like going to do a search and seizure, saying I'm looking for drugs, but you're targeting opposition leaders. Today you're going to say I'm going to do a search in someone's house for cash, but actually you're targeting only opposition leaders. That is colored use and abuse of power, and that's objectionable. If it's in the normal course of enforcement of law, nobody has an objection.
No, but then, the point is legal scrutiny. If the courts do step in and wonder that if bulldozers are going to deliver all the justice, then what do we do? Might as well go on leave or vacation. Smita Prakash, do you think that there is a very smart dehyphenation which has been done by the BJP, that in political rallies for the consumption of the people, an argument will be made that if you are a troublemaker, according to us, then bulldozer. But when you go to courts, in the Kagzi Karwai, it will appear to be an anti-encroachment drive only.
Sir, a very
Look,
small.
bulldozer justice or that political icon of bulldozer, why do you think it's spreading after Uttar Pradesh? It got rewarded in Uttar Pradesh, right? So why would it not spread? People rewarded that bulldozer Rajniti. So chief ministers are sensing it, that the old manner of dispensing justice, people are sick and tired. You can have political parties out here and their spokesperson making fun of me, saying that, I'm trying to cover up. I'm not trying to cover up. I'm not saying it's ethically, morally, legally right. But that is what is happening. Years of protracted police inquiry and then languishing in court for 15, 20 years. They are not delivering justice. So what is the perception that people are getting? That the chief minister is weak and meek. Now the chief minister wants to get re-elected. So what is he or she going to do? They are going to walk the path of the wild, wild west, which you are seeing not just in one state or two states. You're going to see this across the country. Is it legally right? It is morally right, ethically right? It's not. But then from the chief justice to the lower court judges, they have all been saying that this is happening. And Sanket, one more thing, you and I, can we go and even park our car wrong? We can't do that, right? We'll be hauled up. Who is taking advantage of this police inaction or judicial inaction or lethargy? Who's taking these very politicians who come on debates and lecture us? We can't break the law. We can't take advantage of the law, but they do. And here they will give us long lectures about it. You and I have been covering news for how long? 20 years, 15 years, every Friday. Today's a Friday. Every Friday we've been watching from the masjid in Srinagar. Call goes out for stone pelters. Stone pelting stopped. Why? Was it because of a legal process? Nothing happened legally. Those guys who were being paid to tell the youth to go and throw stones at people, at the police, they were put in jail. Those people, the funding was stopped. The youth was told that if you throw stones, you will go to jail. What happened? The shops are open today on a Friday in Srinagar.
No, two different things. My point is troublemakers being troublemakers identified and put behind bars.
It's the same thing.
Supriya Shinette, one moment. Troublemakers being put behind bars, identified and put behind bars is one thing. Short-circuiting the judicial system to deliver speedy justice or a form of justice is a problem.
That is
it may be politically rewarded, but as a country...
that is short-circuiting, Sanket.
Okay.
What is she trying to say?
Supriya Shinette wants to respond. And then Sanjay Jha...
I'm not trying to respond, and I usually never get into an argument with experts or editors. I think I'm here to argue politicians. But I'm really shocked that, Smita, who's an editor of ANI, is actually even for a second trying to justify what is happening in the name of pendency in cases, Smita.
You don't argue. I'm sorry, ma'am. You've even mimicked me on television. Of course you argue. Of course you argue with editors. You began by arguing with my point of view instead of the politician.
Okay, great. So I'm arguing with you. Great. Now I'm glad you realize I'm arguing with you.
You have mimicked me on national television, ma'am.
Thank you, Smita. I am here to argue a point, and I'm very shocked that somebody who calls herself an editor of ANI is even for a fraction of a second trying to justify.
I don't call myself I am an editor. Delivered. Just like you are a spokesperson. I don't call myself that. I am an editor. Don't cast aspersions on news persons. I am an editor. I don't call myself that.
Smita, I don't know what nerve am I really hurting the wrong way. I don't know what wrong.
Okay, come on.
But I'm only simply
you were a journalist. You were a journalist too. Did you call yourself a journalist? You became a journalist.
Smita, relax. Just breathe easy. Even for a fraction of a second, somebody like you comes on national TV and actually says that this is happening because there's pendency in our courts. Are you going to justify that in the name of anything? Will mobs start delivering justice in this country? And we will continue
to... Did I say I was justifying it? I said it is politically, morally, ethically wrong. I said that. I don't think you heard it. I just said that it is political. No, I said that politicians are taking advantage of it.
No, Smita, you're making excuses for it.
I said that it is politically, ethically, morally wrong. I don't think you heard it. I said it is politically, ethically and legally wrong. But politicians are taking advantage of it. You only hear what you want to hear.
You can raise your voice. You can keep talking over me.
Ladies, one moment.
The national TV and every viewer saw. 1 second, Sanket. Every viewer saw you making an excuse for mob justice. Call it what you may, but that's how it came across.
But the point is,
no, I did not.
Some sort of
you are putting words in my mouth where I did not say it.
Sanjay Jha, let's move on, please, ladies. One more. Sanjay Jha, I think somewhere in the middle, I'm trying to find a middle ground here. Somewhere in the middle, what Smita has said and what Supriya is saying is the truth. And the truth is that yes, it is a fact there is a pendency of cases and there is frustration from the judicial system in this country. And then politicians, don't you think, are trying to offer a solution which is extrajudicial. And that is the problem. Bulldozer is an extrajudicial problem.
It is, absolutely. And there is no way that you can rationalize the abuse of power by talking about an electoral verdict going in favor of Adityanath. Let's be very clear on that. The point that I wish to make is this, that the non-military security architecture in India, by which I mean the CBI, income tax, ED, DRI, NIA, etc., are today so corrupted to the core that they basically have made India's democracy fragile. And I'm going to be blunt on your show, Sanket, because the time has come to call out the realities that we should not come on your very popular show and just pontificate. What India is witnessing today, Sanket, is the Gujarat model, the police state that actually is the real legacy of Mr. Modi as a chief minister. I request everybody here to go back and dig deep. When in 2002, when the riots began, who was the one who said that the hand of the ISI and SIMI was behind it even before the investigation started? It was then the Chief Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. So there is an anti-Muslim bigotry, which is the mainstream conversation in India today. You know, NDTV doesn't do it, but I will tell you, Sanket, at some point after your show is over, watch shows at prime time. And the only binary that India is obsessed with is the Hindu-Muslim debate. And we all know who gains by actually popularizing this and polarizing India.
And large sections of the media aiding it.
Okay, yes. Professor Das.
Yeah, I have a very naive question. Just, can you
I'll come to you, Professor Bhatt.
Yeah, can you tell us how many houses been demolished that they haven't done the encroachment? So, is there any evidence? Is there any example?
Can I answer him, Sanket? Can I answer him, Sanket?
Sure,
Number one. Number two. Question number two. If you go to West Bengal, if you will see, there are hundreds of thousands of, the outsiders, the Bangladeshis, they're coming and encroaching in the public places. So, do you support that encroachment is right?
Okay.
No, come on. Professor Das, two totally different things. I think the argument that is being made over here is that if you're trying to deliver justice, what is the BJP saying? That if you are a rioter, your house will be bulldozed. If you are an alleged rapist, your house will be bulldozed. And then that's what I'm saying. Very, very smartly. The legal argument for bulldozing is anti-encroachment drive.
Whether that rapist or whether the person did the crime, whether the person did not do encroachment, whether if there is an encroachment, government has the right to demolish, isn't it?
Okay. Yeah, 1 minute.
Yeah.
Sanket, can I respond?
Flawed argument.
According to Professor Das, it's a happy coincidence that these people who are accused are also encroachers. By the way, I don't know, by that logic, everybody, there will be some or the other fault.
Yeah.
Mr.
Das, I have two questions for you, Mr. Das. Supposing if you were to be a stone pelter, number one, and you are also an illegal occupant of government property or private property, are you not entitled by India's constitutional democracy, which I hope is still alive, to actually receive a notice, number one? Are you not entitled to reply? 3. Are you not entitled to go to the courts? 1 minute, I haven't finished. Aren't you entitled to go to the courts? Number 4, why should your family pay a price which has got nothing to do with the stone pelting that you allegedly did? Number 5, what about if you're talking about unauthorized construction? Are you telling me that only the Muslims in the country do it? I'll tell you, I live in Mumbai, Mr. Das, and I can tell you the majority of illegal occupants here living in the high skyscrapers don't belong to the minority community. They can't even afford those apartments. Will the government say that we are going to bring everything down?
Mr. Jha, you are unnecessarily...
Allegation bulldozer only knows one type of address.
Bringing the religion and the color in picture. Crime is always crime. The crime has to be...
Professor. Way too naive, Professor.
He has no answer.
That's why we see
one by one, please. Professor, but before I come to you, because a mention of West Bengal has happened, Sushmita Dev, I want to come to you. I'll come to you also. Sushmita Dev, please. Ashutosh, I'll come to you. Yes.
Yeah, I've been listening to all the debates. The fact is, any abuse of police power which is directed towards any community is wrong. We all accept that. Now we can keep, scrutinizing the facts, but the fact is that since the Bharatiya Janata Party came to power, everything has a communal color. If there's an accident, who's a Hindu, who's a Muslim? If someone elopes with somebody, who's a Hindu, who's a Muslim? So this is something that is consistently used by the BJP no matter where they are. That's why when an incident like this happens in a state where the Bharatiya Janata Party is in power, then it is looked at in a different way, and 9 out of 10 times there is a communal color. That's the harsh reality. Today the fact is the chief minister, candidates of the BJP can campaign saying this is an election of 80% versus 20%.
Ma'am,
I mean that itself speaks volume about the communal politics that the BJP does, and they are not shy about it. I don't know why any of their panelists have to hide it, because they are open about it.
Quick response, Professor Das.
One thing, let me respond. You are from West Bengal. You know who uses the most.
I'm from Assam, but I'm elected from Bengal.
Power. And this in West Bengal, the situation is so bad. In the TMC uses all the police powers to abuse the BJP or other
Professor, let me tell you something. The difference between Uttar Pradesh and Bengal is as follows. When something happens in Bengal, there is no 144 to stop opposition
I know very well what is the difference.
And the media.
I know the
whether it is the Park Street rape or whether it is the Kanduni rape, accused have not only been arrested but sentenced.
And
okay.
In West Bengal
so
today,
do not compare West Bengal to
West Bengal
the communal BJP state. You people target Bengal because Mamata Banerjee is challenging Narendra Modi. I can give you hundreds of positive stories about Bengal.
Do not talk about the West Bengal.
Highest number of crimes are in Uttar Pradesh. Please go back and check your facts. Your politicians, the saffron politicians, blatantly in their campaign attack our community.
There is no
Bengal is in the eye of the storm because Bengal is challenging the communal politics of Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. That's the whole problem.
Okay.
That's the whole problem.
Strategic
you have a
time
governor sitting in Bengal who exceeds his power.
Let me come in, please. Two of our panelists have not contributed enough, and they're patiently waiting. I'll come back to you.
Mamata Banerjee has arrested every accused. She's sentenced every accused. She's not a Amit
no, but
Shah
then
who
Sushmita Dev, Mamata Banerjee has also been. Have you heard? Mamata Banerjee has also been accused of trivializing a gang rape. How would you respond to that?
I'd like to speak on that.
She says it could be love affair. She's insinuating.
I would like to speak on that.
All sorts of
what
things.
Mamata Banerjee said, what the Chief Minister of Bengal said, has been pulled out of context. She said this is not Uttar Pradesh. I do not govern and interfere into people's love lives.
Actually,
that's not my business. I heard that speech. I heard that speech. And do not twist her words. Maybe some of the journalists do not understand Bengali. At least, Professor, you don't twist it. And try to be neutral.
Almost every month there are 200 rapes happening in West Bengal.
I defy the NCW or anyone to prove that she belittled that rape. She did not belittle that rape.
Okay.
She said, I am not UP government
where
I'm interfering
moving on now.
Yes. That's what she said.
Professor Bhatt and then Ashutosh. They've been waiting patiently.
Is the most unsafe
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
Yes. West Bengal
Professor
is
Bhatt and then
threatening
Ashutosh.
Modi and all the thugs like you, Professor.
To see that some of the people in the panel, the way stone pelting is being, in a way, it is being legitimized as if there is nothing wrong in doing stone pelting. And in a way, they are being protected. No one is talking about this mindset which is getting into stone pelting. Isn't it a matter of discussion that there have been more than 5 or 6 states where during Ram Navami stone pelting has taken place? And so much so in Jharkhand in Lohagoda, there has been, in FIR it has been said, the police officials are saying that it was a pre-planned conspiracy. There are sleeper cells who are working. More than 1,000 people came out of the mosque to attack the procession. Why is no one talking about it? This mindset which is coming, Popular Front of India was allowed to hold a rally in Kota. It is NIA has declared it as a radical organization. There are charges against its members. Their members are sentenced.
Yes.
They are serving in prison
one by one.
for anti-national activities. Now, why is it that this particular mindset, this radicalization of the community, of the Muslim community, which is, which one can see in
only
this kind
Muslim.
of stone pelting. And
only Muslims are radicalized. What is she talking about?
Professor Bhatt, my question is only
you are
Muslim.
radicalizing the Hindus equally.
Whose stone pelting has taken place on
Hindus
which
are not
religious
radicalized.
procession?
to
Sanket,
say
can I please come in?
rape
Please tell me.
Muslims, bring
Sanket,
them
can I
out of
please
these
come in?
graves.
Ashutosh next.
Can I please come in?
There's only one
More than
radical
five
party
saying
in
it
this
is
country,
something
that's the
serious.
BJP.
And in West Bengal, what had happened?
Chief
You were
Minister,
talking
a Prime
about the
Minister who
justice.
says
After the
Kabristan
election in
mein
the month
agar
of
ye
May,
hoga. I mean,
Sushmita ji,
you're
at
giving
least have
us a
heart
lecture on
to accept
radicalism.
this. You please,
Hindu
you please at least have a heart to
radicalism
accept,
is
Sushmita
the
ji,
DNA
the
of
kind
BJP.
of rapes which took place in West Bengal. NCW had to take
Any kind of radicalism is wrong. Any kind of radicalism is wrong. Don't keep saying Muslims. There is enough Hindu radicalism going around in this country.
And again, they have asking that the inquiry should be done by a central agency,
You're shouting
by
so
CBI,
much, I
because
can't
there
hear.
is no justice for people who are not in support of the political
Really?
dispensation which is in power.
And
in
there's
West Bengal.
justice in Uttar
This is not
Pradesh.
just one case.
There
This
is
not
justice
just
in
one
Gujarat.
case, but in all
There is
the
justice in
cases
Madhya
of rapes
Pradesh.
which have been taking place. Sushmita ji,
Sanket,
at least
can
have a
I
heart
please
to
come in for a
accept that.
second?
No,
Madam,
please, Ashutosh,
madam,
he's been waiting
rape
patiently.
is a rape.
I have to go to him.
No matter which
You may
state
be
it
from
is in.
Assam, but you are representing
We
West
can
Bengal.
How many
rape.
people are from the West Bengal are
We
going to
don't have an
Gujarat for
MLA
what?
in our party who's raped. BJP MLAs are accused of raping.
No. Let them please
Disqualify them
complete.
or suspend them.
No volume dipping, please. Yes. Okay, Ashutosh, I want to come to you now.
See, when you-
Ashutosh now. Ashutosh has been waiting patiently. Ashutosh, your views.
He's a good guy.
I have forgotten my question. Your views.
I could have
I'm sure he has enough to
shouted
say
louder.
on
I
some
can
very
tell you, I could have
strange
shouted
points
louder than
made.
all of them put together. I have that kind of a vocal power, and I had done it in the last.
And don't do it. Polite conversation, please.
The fact today is, if there is an attempt to justify that someone's house will be bulldozed because he was a rapist, and somebody's house will be bulldozed because somebody has pelted stones, if that logic goes, then in this country there will be no rule of law and there will be no constitution. Even according to the MP anti-encroachment law, to bulldoze a house, you have to give 10 days notice. The person has to come back with papers, and then the authority has to check those papers. If they found it is still not answer justified, only then they can move. But here, I'm very surprised that a professor in a university is trying to justify that you can bulldoze any house, and that is justified. I'm really sorry to see this. And I also find Geeta ji justifying that stone pelting is a narrative. But I think we all have forgotten that Yati Narsinganand is the greatest saint this country has produced. The Bajrangi Banarsi Das is, I think, is the best non-violence apostle after Bajrang Muni, after Mahatma Gandhi. And all those people on the Navami days, they have forced to enter Muslim areas and shouting a word which I cannot pronounce here. Jamia, dash, and in front of the police. And somebody is standing on the top of the mosque and trying to remove everything. You abuse Muslims, you enter into those constituencies, you make provocative statement, and then you try to build a narrative that stone pelters has to be shot. I think look at the objectively. Will you tolerate if somebody comes to your house and below your house and abuses you left, right, and center? What will you do? Will you keep quiet? I think what kind of narrative we are trying to filter here?
Can I please come in for 5
the
seconds?
political leadership, if the government doesn't follow the rule of law, that government has no reason to exist. And I'm saying it. The MP government and the UP government were bulldozing. There is a Supreme Court law and that Supreme Court intervention, and Supreme Court has said you can't do it. But still you are doing it. Because you have won election. You can do anything and get away with this. What kind of nonsense is happening in this country?
Please go to judgment.
Okay, Mr. Pathania, I want to
come in 5 seconds.
no, one more. Just taking off from where Ashutosh
5 seconds.
One moment. The taking off from where Ashutosh has left, Mr. Pathania, I want to ask you this question. You see,
Sir.
what sort of action you are taking or
Sir.
seen to be taking defines what people will do, whether
Sir.
they will feel emboldened or whether they will be, it will serve as a deterrence. You see, now there are two recent examples. Number one, the Delhi police saying no hate speech in Delhi. In the Yati Narsinganand function, a man who's out on bail, who has again gone to a hate assembly, where his supporters have argued with journalists, intimidated them. Delhi police says no hate speech. Second incident happened only this Friday. Garlanding of all those people who vandalized the house of the Delhi Chief Minister. Two things that I can notice. Mr. Pathania, do you think that when you say, it sounds really rich on your part to say that we are delivering justice? What is the sort of messaging that you are sending?
See, Sanket, Yati Narsinganand was...
Mr. Ashutosh, if you allow me to speak, please.
And after being out
Mr. Ashutosh, please allow me to speak, please, for a minute.
Still, he has not been arrested. So a person like Yati Narsinganand, they get a bail from the court, but somebody who's been in jail for the last 1.5 years, and he's not getting bail. But somebody who's killing people in Lakhimpur is getting bail. But a comedian, stand-up comedian, doesn't get bail in this country. What is happening here?
Mr. Pathania, and thus the main point of discussion right here on the big fight. Does the political affiliation decide who gets justice? Mr.
Sir,
Pathania.
absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Sanket, later,
You
please.
said no hate speech in Delhi. I said no hate speech in the entire country. This is for the first time that from the highest end, even the Param Pujaniya Sir Sanchalak ji has said that this doesn't reflect the culture of India. We don't, neither we testify nor we stand by.
Mr.
by any
Pathania,
of
words are very different from action.
Sir, we don't acknowledge.
Mr. Pathania, words are different from action. If you will
Absolutely
take
not,
action
sir.
against such people,
Absolutely
strong
not, sir.
action, it will serve
Absolutely
as a
not, sir.
deterrent.
Absolutely not, sir.
आप उनके
Absolutely
गले
not.
में माला पहनाएंगे like it happened in the Delhi headquarters of the BJP. All
Sir,
those people who vandalized the chief minister's
That was a
residence.
separate case. That
No,
was
no,
a
no,
separate
no.
case. A genocide of
It's not about
a
genocide,
of
it's the
minorities of
messaging.
Jammu and Kashmir
Mr. Pathania,
was
messaging.
trivialized and mocked by a
अभी क्या बात
elected chief
करो ना?
minister.
Can I please come in?
Mr. Pathania, it's the messaging. If you
Sir,
take stern
not messaging,
action,
sir.
it will
It
serve as a
evoked-
deterrence.
it
If you will
evoked-
not take stern
it
action
evoked
against
the
those who
angst.
support you, then obviously
Sir.
they'll be emboldened. आप प्रोटेक्ट कर रहे हैं ना उनको, यही तो एलिगेशन.
Sir, my respectful submission.
Sanket, can I make a point?
Some people who have disturbed the atmosphere of the entire country and atmosphere of Madhya Pradesh and Khargone also. They have been booked under. You wanted that let them be bailed out after 6 days. Let them commit second crime. Let them commit third crime, and the system.
Now a number of such questions will be asked of people affiliated with the BJP.
Can I please come in?
That the Yati Narsinganand, who's openly issuing a call to arms, is out on bail, and the police says no hate speech.
Sanket, please allow me to come in.
With what Mr. Bashutosh said, he was emancipating a law of 10 days notice, and then there's the Supreme Court ruling which he did not quote. Let Mr. Ashutosh study what Olga Tellis versus Bombay Municipal
Can I please
Corporation.
come in?
AIR
Sanket?
1986.
Yes.
Please study what Olga Tellis versus Bombay Municipal Corporation, the court says. Please see the court judgment in Turkmen's demolition case. 10,000 rupees and jhonpadies demolished in the heart of New
Can I
Delhi.
please come in?
By Mr. Jagmohan.
One moment, Supriya, one moment.
What the Honorable Court says.
You must follow the law.
There is an encroacher and a trespasser is a trespasser. If a person
Okay.
commits
Supriya
criminal right
Shinate, I have
to
only
disturb
1
the
minute
peaceful
left.
atmosphere, what could
Supriya
they say?
Shinate and
And
You know,
Sanjay.
Sanket,
will not follow
Sanjay
law.
and
Demolish
Sanjay.
anybody's house.
Supriya and Sanjay,
Sanket?
one by one, please. Yeah.
Sanket, I think you are wrong, and Mr. Pathania is wrong as well. It is not as if nothing is happening against perpetrators of hate. Some of them are getting bail, and some of them are being made union cabinet ministers. Some of them have become mascots of, hatred and being sent to other states like Kapil Mishra. That is what is happening. Kali Charan, who got bail, got out, actually came out and said, I don't regret what I said against Gandhi. Yati
Kamal Das
Narsingan
became Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh.
Please keep quiet, Smita. At least agree with some of the things that I'm saying.
That's a lead
You are
question.
an
Answer to it.
editor, so to say.
Answer to
I'm
it.
asking you a
No
very relevant question.
personal comments,
You
please.
think-
Supriya,
you
Supriya,
think
no,
Yati
uncalled for,
Narsinganand-
please.
Yati
we'll stick
Narsinganand,
to the
after he
subject,
said,
please. Yeah.
after he said what he said against women, did not go behind bars. It took 1.5 months. Kali Charan out on bail now says, I don't regret. I also want to say, on what basis was
Okay.
Anurag Thakur promoted as cabinet minister, or for that matter, Kapil
Okay,
Mishra
quick
never
right
goes behind
to
bars?
reply to Smita
He cannot
Prakash because
incite
the name was
violence.
taken.
That's
One-
what
le-
no,
I'll have to be fair,
came
please.
in, which is why I took a name. 1 second.
Smita
And I
Prakash.
also want to say, when courts in this country turn around and say you can deliver hate speeches while
No,
smiling,
what is 1
this is
second?
what is
Smita
going
This
to
is
Prakash.
what
happen.
she
Smita
continues
Prakash.
to talk and she's given the microphone. I'm sorry, look, It's your riot versus my riot. This is what every political party does. Kamal Nath became Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh despite
So are you going to
1984.
justify this
So this
by
is what
this
I'm
logic?
trying to say, that the
Are you
political
justifying it by this
dispensation,
logic?
whichever is
Are
in
you
power,
justifying
takes
what is
advantage
happening
of the
by this
loopholes
logic?
in our
Exactly, which is
judiciary,
why the
in
topic
our
of discussion
policing
is so
to
bizarre.
settle
Do
scores,
political
and in
sides
some
define
cases the
justice?
cover-up is terrible.
So biased.
It is wrong morally and ethically.
Smita,
Which
you
is
are an
why the
editor.
okay last
Be
comment,
unbiased
Sanjay
in the
Jha.
show.
Sanjay
When I'm
Jha.
talking about
I
Yati
wish I had
Narasimhan
more
and
time.
Kalicharan,
I
don't
wish I had
jump
more
to
time.
the
I wish I had
take
more
my
time.
name. I'm
Don't
not
jump to the
interested
Sanjay
in
Jha,
defense.
debating
please.
with you.
Sanjay Jha.
Don't jump to the
Ladies,
defense.
please.
Don't jump to the defense of Yati
Sanjay Jha,
Narasimhan.
I think
You're doing
In
great
conclusion,
injustice to being an editor.
in conclusion, do
You are
political sides
justifying
define
Yati
justice?
Narasimhan now.
no,
What
they
have you come
don't.
to?
And I want
What
to
have you
make 2
resorted to?
points very
Personal
quickly
attacks
on
for
your
no
program.
reason.
Please be short.
If Smita allows me to speak. Number one, when governments begin to function like an organized mafia, then I think democracy is in danger. And let's call it out with strong words, Sanket. I believe that as a citizen of my country, I feel appalled that tonight a family is probably out on the roads without shelter because the government has got an agenda of attacking a certain minority population. It's not done, and we need to use your platform today to protest
All right.
against these brazen
All
shenanigans
right,
going on in our country.
justice cannot be defined by which side of the political divide you're on. Simple, plain and simple. Thank you very much, all of you all. A very engaging debate. I would say a very important one to be had in these times. Thank you. Let's just take some comments on the Coup app as well. Jatin writes, political sides are not meant to define justice as they are always biased, but political sides definitely influence the judicial system. Another Coup user, Nemon, says political parties behave like the Supreme Court in itself nowadays. Well, bulldozer justice, obviously, is not the right way to go ahead. That's a wrap in this edition of The Big Fight. News continues on the other side.